At the PFL event in Atlanta, John Jones and Francis Ngannou came face to face outside of the Smart Cage. Towards the end of the event, it was tense but cordial. Both men showed respect. They even uttered that word towards each other, but they also intimated that it's the other party's avoidance. They're the ones accusing each other of kind of avoiding and failing to make this fight happen. But look, seeing these guys face to face, up close for the first time, and together with that offer that we heard that the UFC made to Tyson Fury, where apparently co-promoting is not as big of a problem as we thought. Gimmick fights are, maybe on the table. That's what I'm getting at. In the octagon, by the way, do you feel like this fight could indeed happen in the future somehow? Where I think maybe in the past we've possibly shut it down. Here's some questions for you guys. Where and when would it take place? What would be the stakes? And even if the only thing on the line was the title of baddest man on the planet, would that suffice at this point? All right, coming to you first, Mike, this time for real.
Man, this just felt like blue balls, right? Like that's the best way I would describe this entire video. Like it just shows what if, right? Like what should have happened, the fight we should have got, but like all those questions you asked, George, I feel like it's just doesn't even matter, right? Like, yeah, I'd love to see it tomorrow, a co-promotion in the UFC. They both get with UFC PFL, they both get paid, what they deserve, all that stuff, perfect world things. But it just felt like this is a tease of something that is so far unrealistic. John Jones posted a video of him facing off with Sergey Spivak, and that feels more realistic than this felt, right? Like at this event, that's how I saw it. It's just, I don't know, like it seems like it's past. Both these guys are just barking at each other from, across the lane. And I'm sure this didn't make Dana White and the UFC happy. Their second star in as many months going to another event wearing their like branded stuff, facing off with a fighter that's not in their organization, speaking of Conor McGregor and Mike Perry there too. So it's just, I don't know. It was cool to see, obviously, but it just felt like it's not anywhere closer to happening. This was just a tease of one of the biggest fights of all time that the UFC failed to make that isn't going to happen. And, like both these guys are going to fight other people next, most likely before they fight each other. So if they keep winning, maybe it inches closer to reality or something, but like it only takes one loss on either side or a retirement from John Jones or something. And it's just, this our closest thing to seeing these two in the octagon is them facing off outside the cage at PFL.
The good thing is they both are going to fight under the ESPN banner, so maybe that'll make it easy. All right, how about you, Goes? What do you think about all this?
I don't think this fight ever happens, man. That's the problem. You sit there and you watch it, and it's fun because you get to size them up. You get to see their reactions to what each other says. But at the end of the day, I don't think there's anything that's going to come out of it. No fight. And if it ever does, it'd have to be further down the road, because I think that the biggest obstacle that happens when you have these big fights is when fighters have options. And that's what Francis Ngannou has. He has options, right? If he wants to make a lot of money, he can box. It could still happen. And he's got his deal over there with PFL. And John Jones has his with the UFC. They have options. And John, the problem with John is I feel like if you're the baddest man on the planet, you can't be chasing other people. They need to come to you. And that to me says a lot. The fact that he's constantly the one chirping, coming after Francis Ngannou, I think it only really cements that, a lot of people feel that Francis Ngannou leaving the way he did, he's still the baddest man on the planet. And it's John Jones. It's up to him to kind of prove him wrong. I think that bothers John Jones a little bit. They have these mind games that they play. I like John Jones referring to the jiu-jitsu and the wrestling and all that. He was trying to get in Francis Ngannou's head, but Francis has done a really good job, not just with John Jones, but with Dana White. Just anytime these comments come up, he's really cool, calm, and collective. And we don't really see that in MMA. A lot of guys get flustered, they get really pissed off, and they start saying crazy things back. He's just been really cool and calm. And it's almost like like when your dog is just acting up, and then all of a sudden you just kind of start to pet him and he calms down a little bit. That's what he did to John Jones. Like John Jones just kind of chilled out and was like, yeah, you're right. And just kind of walked away. It was kind of funny, to be honest. But as far as getting like a payoff in the end, I just don't see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was really, really a nice face-off. I enjoyed it. It sounded a little bit like one of those country duos, you know, doing karaoke because they were repeating each other at first. Respect, respect. You don't want to smoke. You don't want to smoke. You know, and then finally they were getting to talking about wrestling and other things. But man, I was watching it just going, damn, it's a shame if we don't get to see this. But something about that little reunion and the fact that they're both on ESPN, I want to try and stay optimistic that it could happen later in 2024. Mike's right. They got to fight others first. But I want to stay optimistic. What say you, Nolan King?
It kind of, I don't know, it was weird. I mean, it was good to see them like sizing each other up, kind of gets the brain flowing on, oh, okay, John's not that much smaller and everything like that. But for me, I don't know, man, it's just like almost seeing it in the circumstances that it was happening under just almost made me think it's even like more unrealistic than what I expected. I think it just kind of gave off like real, like forced, inorganic PR photo op vibes to me. You know, John being there cornering somebody, and that's the way that they get it done, is that Francis is a guest fighter there. Like, it felt like if like at the UFC Hall of Fame, they have like Anderson and GSP square off and everybody's like, oh, that would be kind of cool, but it's not going to happen. Like, haha, you know, and then they kind of go separate ways. That's what it felt like to me. And I think, you know, it's the millionth example of us talking about a super fight, a cross promotion fight that likely is not going to happen. I mean, how many times have we sat on a panel like this or online and talked to, you know, everybody there about, oh, what if they did, you know, Bellator champ versus UFC champ, or PFL champ versus I almost said Bellator, but that might actually happen now. You know, we've talked about this a million times, and how many times has it happened? It's never happened. So it's a fun debate. It's cool, but when it comes to getting me excited, I think we need to have some path to realism, to a realistic scenario here. And that just isn't, we don't have that right now. I mean, it was enough of a hassle for Francis to get a clause in his contract that he can go box, never mind, you know, cross promote with the UFC. So it's cool that we got that image in our heads. We can pretend that it might happen sometime or get excited about what if it were to happen. But for me right now, it's getting tabled in the back of my brain until somebody's contract allows them to do so.
I got a comment here from the chat. Scott Christian says, Jones and Francis will never fight. Dana's interest is one thing, to not allow the PFL or Francis to gain a foothold in Western Africa. Mike, does that make any sense to you, possibly? I mean, both organizations have talked about Africa. So does this have legs, his comment?
I don't think that's like their first concern, right? Like maybe it's somewhere on the checklist of like 10 things, but I don't think UFC freaked out when like Bellator beat them to Paris or something like that. You know, it's just not, I don't think on the high list of concerns. Like, you know, maybe if they had Francis on that card and it was like a huge, you know, stadium event wherever in Africa, it would make sense. They'd be like, damn, we wish we could have had that with, you know, Izzy and Francis and Usman when they were all champions. But like, I don't think that's what's going to be most frustrating for them. If, you know, it's Francis and Ngannou versus Attila, you know, like whoever, right? Like some random PFL heavyweight. I don't think that's going to bother them. But if they can, you know, have a part in Francis versus Tyson Fury or something, it happens in Africa or something like that, there's, I think it's a different level. But just putting on an event there, I don't think they're too worried about it.
Mm-hmm. Guys, what if they came up with a crazy idea of just no belts, no PFL, no UFC? It's just a business transaction. Those two fight for the baddest man on the planet. I don't think Dana would do it, but if they did, I think we're all in, right? It doesn't have to be for a belt or anything. We just want to find out who's the baddest of these two. It appears that these two are, you know, the baddest men on the planet right now. We're not even thinking about Fury or Deontay or anything. We respect what they do in the boxing ring, but baddest man on the planet, it's one of these two.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And the thing is, it's a difficult one to call. Situation. How would that fight go down? You know, obviously Francis Ngannou's got a huge, maybe not huge, but he's got an advantage on the feet. And like John Jones pointed out, there are times where you think maybe the wrestling, the jiu-jitsu might not be up to par. We know they're up to par with John Jones. John Jones is about as well-rounded as you can be. He's just a smaller heavyweight, right? This is kind of Francis's world. So hell yeah, I'd be in for something like that.
Mike, can you show that B-roll? Was that an accident, or can you show
that?
Yeah,
no, we can show a little bit of it. Might be showing some of our screen. Here, hold on.
Respect. But who's not going to happen? We're over here. It's over there. Let's sit in the
You know you don't want no smoke.
Huh?
You know you don't want no smoke.
You know I want all the smoke. You know I want all the smoke.
With the one true king. With the one true king.
Listen, I give you a respect for that, but I want that smoke. You know that.
I've always been king.
Huh?
I've always been king. Since the day I started this. And I'm gonna die a king.
In your division. In the heavyweight.
Pretty good stuff, man. I like
That is good. That definitely gets you a little fired up. But yeah, I don't know. Just feels, as I said off the top, feels further than ever at this point. It's interesting though. I was going to ask you guys, do you find it, the reaction to this, you know, when Connor went to BKFC, right? Like everyone was like, oh my God, this is so good for bare knuckle, like their brand, blah, blah, blah. They got Conor McGregor to do this. They have John Jones there at a PFL event wearing the shirt facing off with their guy cage side. I don't see all these people being like, this is so great for PFL's brand. This is going to help take them to the next level. Why do we think it's like different?
It definitely doesn't hurt them, right? Like,
No,
I mean,
sure.
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't see anyone talking about that.
McGregor,
Right?
yeah, McGregor's just more popular,
Yeah.
I think, is what it boils down to. His fans are more passionate. Although I can't say that. Jones, man, there's some Jones fans that'll come at you if you say even the darndest thing. But
I think for me,
have,
the thing with Connor too is like that was such a shock factor. I think the fact that we knew that this was going to happen beforehand might have played into it a little bit. Like people kind of put 2 and 2 together, you know, the day before, and it had been talked about. Whereas Connor was like, "What the hell? Why is he here?" You know? Oh, and I think the thing was too with like bare knuckle, like kind of a little bit, you know, kind of a step down from PFL in terms of like the way that they're accepted and legitimized in the sport. So maybe that was it too. It was almost like even bigger of a gap of bringing somebody up because there was more room in between, you know, the big Conor McGregor appearance and BKFC than PFL, which is kind of an established brand.
And Connor's been able to get out and kind of call his own shots before, right? When he brought up Floyd Mayweather, we all went, get out of here, dude. This is never going to happen. He actually made that happen. So maybe him being in that BKFC, you go back to some of those memories and go, oh, you never know. Maybe he can make that happen. Like, maybe with John Jones, we just felt like that's clearly UFC and that's clearly PFL, and it ain't gonna happen.
Yeah.
Was the face-off on the broadcast, or was that social media only?
They showed, I think, like a snippet of it, but there was no audio. It was like, I think at the very end, they had like an overhead cage side angle that went out, and you could see like, you know, Francis and Back talking to John, and the commentators are just like, oh, the image you wanted to see all night, but there wasn't any audio until after the fact. All those reporters cage side, smart for them. It happened pretty much right in front of Media Row, it seemed.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I'm going to remain optimistic maybe in 2024 at some point, because what makes Dana White's tail wag is money. And if there's a big money fight, I think will at least consider it or see, you know, what can we do to make this happen? And one obstacle has always been, I hate to keep bringing it up, but when you're talking about Bellator and UFC, the first thing is, well, we're with Showtime, you're with ESPN, and that's why I keep bringing up the fact that at least we know they're both on ESPN. Is that one less obstacle, you know? And Dana has always spoken highly of the PFL. He really hasn't shot them down. So again, if there's
until now, we'll see what happens the next time he gets asked about them on that one.
What would suck for Dana though is if that fight happens and Ngannou does win, then his heavyweight champ just got knocked out. Whether there's a belt or not, that's something I think Dana would not want to experience, because he is still haunted by Chuck Liddell going to Pride in 2003 for the Grand Prix that they had, and he lost over there. And back then, man, we used to call them Pride nut huggers and UFC nut huggers, and they would clash a lot. And you know what? Back then, maybe even Pride was regarded as number one, UFC number two, whatever. But when that loss happened, I mean, it was huge. And then there was a time where I think Vanderlei was brought in before they fought to do a face-off. And that fight was being talked about. And then it never happened. And I think it got under Dana's skin that people would bring up that Pride kept getting the best of them. One, when this guy went down there and got knocked out. Two, when Pride sent Vanderlei, you know, got a little FaceTime, and then nothing happened, you know. Of course, in the end, Dana White won. He bought Pride, or the, you know, all the footage and some contracts. But still, I think he's a little haunted from some of those events. But man, that was almost 20 years ago. You would think that right now he has so much control over what can and can't happen, that a big money fight like this, learn from the lessons. We didn't get Fedor versus Randy. We didn't get Anderson versus GSP. We never got Ronda versus Cyborg or whatever else. I don't even know if that one's on that level, but you guys know what I mean. Dude, this is a big one. And we haven't even got Nate versus Connor 3. You know what I mean? And who knows if that's even going to be appealing if and when it happens, considering both guys have definitely slowed down. So I don't know. Make this fight happen is all I can say. It's a huge fight. It's a stadium fight.